Well, the Reserve Bank kept interest rates on hold today at 4.35%, but the Governor, Michelle Bullock, refused to take another potential hike off the table. Here's what she had to say.
We've always felt that it was a bit too soon to declare victory, and I think the numbers in recent weeks have demonstrated that for us. We think policy is restrictive. We don't think we necessarily have to tighten again, but we can't rule it out. If we have to, we will.
All right, let's bring in now macro business chief economist Leith Van Onselen. Leith, good to see you. Look, those comments there were where Michelle Bullock was questioned on why her outlook for inflation was more positive right at the end of last year. I mean, there was the November rate hike, but then towards the end of last year and early this year, it was looking like the government was on a stronger track. The RBA was on a stronger track to tackling inflation. Now they seem less certain. Why is this?
Yeah, so in early January, we received the December quarter CPI data, and what that basically showed was that inflation was falling quicker than the RBA expected. And then obviously 2 weeks ago, we got the March quarter CPI data, which showed that it's rising slightly more than what they expected. So effectively, economists were caught out, the Reserve Bank was caught out, inflation looked like it was better than it was, and now it looks slightly worse than they were expecting. So as a result, inflation's proving a bit more sticky. I think Michelle Bullock's taken a really sensible approach here. She's basically neutral interest rates. So she's saying the situation is uncertain. They're concerned about inflation, but they're also concerned about ultra-weak consumer spending. So retail sales data released today by the ABS showed that per capita retail sales fallen by nearly 6% since 2022. So what the RBA said is they're going to wait for upcoming data. Now, for those of you who are interested in watching what interest rates are going to do, the big key data points to look out for are next week's Q1 wage price index, as well as a March labour force data, which will come out next week. And that'll sort of provide us with the next, snippet of information, which will tell us which way rates might go.
Well, maybe we'll have you back on then to analyse those data sets for us. But I listened to Michelle Bullock's press conference this afternoon. She also spoke about how household consumption figures reflect the fact that many are doing it very tough. She also pointed to the tight rental market, and she painted this picture of, I suppose, two sides of Australia. She said some households are managing to save even, are doing it okay, but other families are taking out a second job. She spoke about how they're cutting back on discretionary items, even skipping medical appointments because they are doing it so tough.
Yeah, look, I'm not surprised by that. I'd say we've got three Australias right now. So you've got effectively 1/3 of Australia rents. They're doing it really tough because rental inflation is obviously super high because of this high immigration. You got about 1/3 of Australians have an owner-occupied mortgage. They're getting absolutely smashed by interest rates. But then you have 1/3 of Australians who own their homes outright. They tend to be older, and they're actually laughing. They're doing really well for themselves because they're getting really high investment returns. They're getting high interest earnings on their savings, and they're not paying these high rents and high mortgages. So yeah, look, we really do have a sort of three-part Australia at the moment. 2/3 are doing it tough, 1/3's laughing all the way to the bank.
Now, the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, has said that now is not the time for scorched earth austerity. He says it would not be wise to slash and burn this budget. What message does this send about next week's budget? And could the budget next week, and depending on the spending, if it's not kept to a minimum, could this also impact on whether rates are lifted again?
Yeah, look, I hope they don't. Obviously, the federal government should never run an expansionary budget when you have this sort of situation of higher than wanted inflation, because all that it will do is add to demand and inflation. It should also ensure that the quality of its spending is as robust as possible. And I'd argue that its future-made renewables manufacturing boondoggle is the opposite of responsible spending. And if the government is going to provide, some sort of money to households, it should ensure that it's incredibly well targeted. So, for example, if it provides rental assistance or energy price subsidies, while they're not exactly the best policy and they don't fix the underlying problem, at least they'll bring down inflation in those specific areas. So they might end up being at least neutral for inflation because they'll give households more money to spend, but at the same time, they'll also directly reduce inflation in those areas. But what we really need, Sharri, is we need proper policy action in the areas that the government can control that's actually pushing up inflation. So we need to cut immigration to take pressure off the rental market, and we obviously need to reform the energy market so to bring down energy prices. And those are the two things the federal government should be looking at rather than just giving money away.
Yeah. All right. Leith Van Onselen, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.